it is the Brown Booktuber, and I'm coming at you from a weird angle. Let's talk about the books I read in February. I read 5 books in February. I read 4 in the first week and a half, and the last one took me 3 weeks. But let's talk about them. Up first was Do Not Let My Past Be Your Future by Harry Leslie Smith, and I will not lie, this book is very sad, and it's even more sad that you know that it's a real thing that happened. Harry Leslie Smith is a writer and former soldier. Obviously most people were soldiers in World War II, and also very big aficionado of the Labour Party. And basically this is his story of growing up in just abject poverty in pre-Labour Party Britain. Well, pre-World War II Labour Party Britain. And it's him describing just how hard and harsh it was for the working class in Britain, and also how he is worried and scared. And he was writing this on his deathbed. I think he died about 2 to 3 years ago. 4 years ago, actually. It's 2022. And him just being like, do not let something like this ever happen again. Do not let them sell off the NHS. Do not let them treat the working class poorly ever again. And some of the things he said, I do not want to happen, have happened, and it's just heartbreaking reading it. Just, if you care about, that sort of stuff, I definitely recommend it. Do Not Let My Past Be Your Future by Harry Leslie Smith. Up next, I read Things That Can and Cannot Be Said by Roy and Cusack. I made a whole video about that, so it's going to be there. Here's the thumbnail as well, if I can find that. Go watch that whole video. I can't really do justice of it in this condensed format, so click here if it's still there, or this thing, or go on the link in the description down below. Highly recommend it. I'm to the next 2 books back to back. First was This Was a Country by Achebe, and the other one was A Man of the People, also by Achebe. This Was a Country is basically Achebe is kind of an autobiography, but also his telling of Nigerian history. Specifically from the lens of him being a man from the Igbo tribe. So, and the civil war in Nigeria concerning the area of what was Biafra. So, I would not say this is a definitive look at Nigerian history, because it is very much so from Achebe's perspective as a man of the Igbo tribe. So I would not say, hey, read this book, it is a definitive knowledge and history of Nigerian history. I wouldn't say that, so I can't really say, hey, this book taught me all about Nigeria, because, again, it is from Achebe's perspective, but it is a very good and interesting perspective to have, and it might be a good point to kind of launch off from kind of seeing what Achebe's perspective is, and then learning and reading about other perspectives about the history of Nigeria and the Civil War. I don't know, I might look into it further. The other Achebe book we're talking about is A Man of the People, which was kind of a novella about a teacher in Nigeria who is kind of learning about Nigerian politics, and it very much goes into corruption. I believe Achebe wrote this book and released it and sent it off for publication, I think literally as a civil war, as a coup took place in Nigeria. It was crazy. This was in... it's interesting that I read this after I read This Was a Country, because I learnt the story about this book after I read the other book. But basically, he had written this and he had sent it off to a publisher in London, and they approved it. I'm pretty sure the morning of, or a couple of days before the coup took place in Nigeria, and then it came out, and he was like, oh, well, I guessed something that happened. I kind of ruined that book, didn't I? But, he kind of just wrote and predicted something that happened, and he was like, oh, yeah, I did that. And it was crazy. It's a good book. I enjoyed it. And also it's short. It's about 200 pages, I think. So it's not a very long read. But it was just crazy reading about that book before I read the book. And also I like Achebe's book, Things Fall Apart. So I've read Things Fall Apart, A Man of the People, and I think there's a third book of his that I need to read, which kind of is considered a trilogy. So maybe that will be read over the summer. Who knows? The final book I read was Notes of a Native Son by James Baldwin. What can I say? James Baldwin was always a very emphatic and moving reader and orator. Orator, is that the correct word? Speaker, maybe. And this book just goes to show that even further. He's talking about his experience in America. He's talking about his analysis of Hollywood and how they treated black people in Hollywood at the time. Kind of his thoughts on books like A Native Son and movies, of course. And then he also talks about his time in Paris. When he first moved to Paris, he talks about how he was treated when he was sent to prison in Paris, and kind of how he compares his living as a black man, a African American in Paris, compared to his life as an African American in America. And his very touching and heartfelt speech that he kind of gives, he wrote here about how when white men fight for liberty and freedom, the white world claps for them, but when black men fight for liberty and freedom, they are put down. And I'm not going to use the actual verbiage he used, but you know, it's a very powerful book. It's a very good read. I definitely recommend reading this, especially if you're someone who's interested in people who were instrumental to the civil rights movement and just James Baldwin in general. I think everyone should read or at least listen to James Baldwin. So yeah, that one out of the 5 books I read is the one where I'm like, must read. I probably won't put graphics, but that one's the must read of the month. So thank you for watching. If you've read any of these books, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you haven't, which ones has this inspired you to read? Remember to like, subscribe, share the video with a friend or family member. And hey, hope you read a great book today.